in the 80s, a new hitting theory had come along that Ted said would set hitting back 20 years. And I think it did, at least 20 years. About 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I started to notice that the Ted Williams science of hitting theory was starting to make its way back in to professional baseball and college baseball. And therefore, being the person who understands that theory better than anyone else, at least in Ted's opinion, I thought it was time to weigh in and comment, because I don't think they're doing a good job of it. So the idea was to then use a World Series game to stream and make comments on while the game was actually going on in real time. So we planned on doing this for Game 6, which was just a few days ago. Unfortunately, we had trouble streaming. We had it working during the day. It looked pretty good. Then when it came game time, we could not get the audio for the life of us. We tried for an hour and a half, so we're going to try to come in halfway through the game. We could not get it done. When I went to the grade school in Boston, my desk still had the inkwells where Sam Adams and John Quincy Adams had dipped their quill pens. We had regular pens. But the point being is that all this is a stretch for me. I'm a little bit older, and this technical stuff is a challenge at times for our organization. We fought through it, and we got a solution here. So the idea again was to watch a game in real time, comment on what is basically the Ted Williams theory: hips ahead of hands, slightly up, unbroken wristed contact, and kind of show what's missing from it, what is not there that Ted intended to be there. So we have used a highlight clip. Obviously the game was played a few days ago, so we used a highlight clip instead. The only problem with the highlight clip is that it is going from the last pitch of the at-bat. So a guy either strikes out, or he walks, or he gets a hit, or hits a grounder short, or something like that. So we're working from the last pitch. Now, unfortunately, we don't have what I call pitch continuity. That is to say, what did this pitcher throw 0-0, and then if it's a strike, what did he come back with? It was a ball, what did he come back? We don't have that, and that's important. But for this video, we've got to start somewhere. I think we're going to be able to get a lot of information out. So we used this highlight clip, and I'll put it below. We do not own it. It seems like this organization, which is not Major League Baseball, had created this highlight clip. Obviously, it's Major League Baseball's footage. We're trying to be helpful. This is an educational video. We're not making, Ted Williams League or myself is not making any money off it, nor do we want to. We just want to show the Ted Williams theory in a huge game, and what is good and what is missing and why. And that's pretty much the whole thing. So I'm trying to think if we missed anything here. Yeah, no, I think we got it. It's good to go. So we'll be right back, and we'll jump into the game. And at the end of the game, I'll make comments in detail about the comments you're going to hear me make as we go through the game. All right, we'll be right back. So here we are kicking off the top of the first. And here's Schwarber. 3-2 pitch, no two-strike stroke. Walks him, but no two-strike stroke. I think it was there. Looked pretty good. Here's Hoskins. I think he might have rolled that one over to short. When you're a little bit late on the ball, at these high velocities, you go to the quickest parts of your swing, which are from the elbows down, and that tends to give you the roll. Here's Real Mutu. He gets hit. Not going to say too much about that, other than ouch. And here's Bryce Harper. Now I think what happened there is what I call a target area mistake, or what I call under the white, and we'll talk about it later on. It's too detailed to get into now. I think he was on time and just hit the wrong part of the ball. So now we're jumping over to the Astros. And like I said, you're going to hear me say a lot of things, and we'll talk about them after the game is over because there's not enough time in this highlight reel to do it correctly. So here's Altuve. He's 1-2 and no 2-strike stroke. I also think Altuve is out of style. Here's Pena. Looked like you rolled that one over. I think Pena is very late and unconnected with his swing. This is Alvarez, and I think Alvarez is very much in style and does a lot of things right. Top of 2. That was Castellanos. Again, no 2-strike stroke. Gets rung up. Here's Bohm. This guy, I think, is very much in style, and I really like him. I didn't really know him until I did this video. I like this kid. There's Segura, no 2-strike stroke. See you later. Here's Veerling. Now they'll walk him. And not too much to be said there, 4 straight balls. Here's Sosa. Hits the ball well. Alvarez at the wall. Hate the way he caught that. I would have went to the wall first. There's plenty of time to do it. Take the fear away, catch the ball second. Here's Bregman. We're in the bottom of the second. I think he may have rolled that one over as well. Here's Tucker. No 2-strike stroke, ball 4. And that's what happens. No 2-strike stroke, and a guy walks or he hits one with 2 strikes, and everybody forgets about how important the 2-strike stroke is. Here's Vasquez. And I think that could have, no 2-strike stroke, that could have been an... So he'll go into the top of the 3rd. Here's Schwarber. No 2-strike stroke. Here comes Hoskins. No 2-strike stroke. Real Muto is now at the plate. No 2-strike stroke, and what a curveball is. Tough to deal with. Tough to deal. We'll go to the bottom of the 3rd. Now there's Mancini, and that's a really good inside-out stroke. We'll talk about that later. Excellent. Excellent. Well done. That was done on purpose, in my opinion. Here's McCormick. Really seemed like he may be going to try to hit and run with Mancini, maybe to try to hit the ball the right side, but he was get the wrong pitch to do it and was much too close to the plate. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Here's Maldonado. And this is a player that I think really needs to concentrate on what his style is. We'll talk about style later. So bottom of the 3rd, here's Altuve, no 2-strike stroke. See you later. So we're in the top of the 4th. Here's Bryce Harper. 2-2 count, no 2-strike stroke, and he goes down, swinging. This will bring up Castellanos. Again, 2 strikes, no 2-strike stroke, 3-2. He's going to argue about it. Looks too close to take to me. This will bring Bohm to the plate. Again, we're in the top of the 4th. Maybe not the best pitch selection there, but I think this guy's had himself a nice series. Here's Pena. He looks like he's got himself a nice base hit. Again, a lot of things off in his swing to me,
but he does some things right, and he's got talent to burn. Here's Alvarez. Again, hitting to the middle of the fields, and he showed that style all day. Here's Bregman. No two-strike stroke. And here's Tucker, and this ball to me is what I call a target area mistake, and we'll talk about that more. So we're going to head to the top of the fifth. And this Sugera and Verling, and both these at-bats to me look like they were late. They try to make up for it with their hands, hitting the ball to the opposite field. Here's Socia. Again, no two-strike stroke. A little bit of trouble there. Bottom of the fifth. Vasquez, seemed to top one up the middle. Here's Mancini. No two-strike stroke gone. Can't say enough about it. Here's McCormick. Again, no two-strike stroke. Tough pitch to deal with. Tough one. Up in 90s. Don't know how you think you're going to do it. So now we're in the top of the sixth. And there's the ball that everyone's going to remember in Philly. So Schwarber, with two strikes on him, this is what happens. Someone will either walk or they'll drive one like that with two strikes, and everybody says, oh, anybody can do it. Well, it's on an average, nobody can do it. It's a very odd thing to happen. And it causes all sorts of problems. Not something the fan really understands either. But any ball player knows what I'm talking about. Much easier to hit the ball with a decent two-strike stroke. Here's Hodgkins. And again, we're in the top of the sixth. We're watching them celebrate in the dugout like this is going to be a one-run ball game. It's kind of funny in a way, talking the best two teams in the game. Now I thought it's kind of tough to say. I would say that was also a target area mistake, and I think that might be the best play in the game right there by Bregman. Here's Realmuto. A little ground ball. Now we're in the bottom of the sixth. Oh, I'm sorry, no. Bryce Harper goes down with no two-strike stroke. So we're headed to the bottom of the sixth. Maldonado gets hit. I never really thought about getting hit as a hitter. If it was going to happen, it was going to happen. I mean, certainly there were times when I was concerned about it, depending who I was facing. But the rules of it are kind of interesting. He doesn't really move his body out of the way, but he is pulling his arm in. So I guess he was trying to get out of the way, and that's enough of that. I'm not going to talk about that too much. So he's on first, and we're going to go back to Altuve in the bottom of the sixth. Altuve, ground ball to third. They can't double it up though. Here's Pena. Another hit up the middle. Very much in style. Boy, I'll tell you, when he gets good, when he learns how to swing, if he can keep his style, he's really going to be something. He really is. And that'll bring up Alvarez. This play where Altuve just turns the corner and goes to third is amazing, because the ball was really still in what I consider to be shallow center field. The center fielder didn't even think about going after him because he can fly. He didn't even slow down. He just looked at it and said, "I'm going on you." And then the center fielder's thinking, well, if I blow this, Pena's going to go to second. And here's the bomb right here. And again, Alvarez very much in style, gets a good pitch, and just drives it right to the middle of the field. Most of the great hitters hit the ball in the middle of the field. Something we'll touch on a little bit later, And this will bring up Bregman with a 1 out. Easier to hit to the middle of the field. Whether you have before 2 strikes. Here's Tucker. No 2-strike stroke. And to me, that's a big at bat right there. You get a guy on second, you only got a 2-run lead, or you're not up by much. Vasquez with a nice hit to left field. This will bring up Mancini with a 4-run lead, with a 4-1 lead. And this play, boy, that might be the best play of the game. Great play by the shortstop and the first baseman. It's either that or Bregman's barehanded play. I can't make up my mind. They're both outstanding plays. The top of the 7th, and this is Castellanos at the plate. So here's Castellanos. Again, no 2-strike stroke. Pops out to shallow right. Here's Bohm. No 2-strike stroke. Throws it by him. Here's Segura. No 2-strike stroke. See you later. That is a very disheartening inning when you're down by 3 runs. Very disheartening. And we'll talk about the 2-strike stroke more, but all those guys are in a 2-strike situation and did nothing. So here we go. What do we got now? We're in the bottom of the 7th, and maybe not the best pitch selection there. Here's Maldonado. Again, this is a little bit out of style. I'd like to see him hit the ball more in the middle of the field. Here's Altuve. Now, that's a curveball, no 2-strike stroke, but where he hit the curveball on the field is kind of interesting to me. Kind of turned it back where it came from. I kind of like that. The way he did it I don't like, but I like the fact that he did do it, if that makes sense to you. Here's Pena again, no 2-strike stroke, see you later. So now we're going to head into the the top of the 8th. So here's Stott pinch hitting for Verling, and I'm not sure what pitch it was. Hard inside out stroke. Not sure if he did it on purpose. He might have just been late on the ball. With the slight upswing, the barrel stays in the plane longer, so it's a fantastic advantage of the slight upswing. Hit hard. Here's Marsh pinch hitting for Socha. 2-1 count, gets it. Coming off the bench, that's a great at bat. He's out, but a great at bat. Hey Schwarber, this was very disappointing. It's like the Phillies sending up one of their best hitters. It's like sending up the white flag. Hey, we can't do this. Very disappointing. Like on a motivational level. So here's Alvarez. No two-strike stroke. See you later, big guy. With a two-strike stroke, he'll hit 10 home runs out of his two-strike stroke with that kind of body. No question in my mind. Here's Bregman. Kind of there's that, I'm going to call it the Hail Mary swing. We've seen this a bunch in the game, but I haven't really said it. But two-strike stroke, but no two-strike stroke and swinging normally when he doesn't really know what's coming. And then you have that flailing Hail Mary effect. Let me just throw the bat on the ball with the only way I swing the bat out of this swing with this club, with my driver. It's just not the way to do it. And that it'll really help the game if we get away from that. It really will. And get back to intelligent hitting. Ted used to say they lack finesse. This is what he meant, not just two-strike hitting, but also going the other way, stuff like that, And we'll go into detail more. They reversed this call. Hope Bregman's finger is okay because he bent there. He is yanking on it. Dusty's going to have a heart attack. I don't blame him. Here's Tucker. Again, same thing, that same Hail Mary flailing type of swing. I got two strikes on me and I don't know what else to do. Or I don't have a lot of experience of what to do in this situation. So now we're heading to the top of the ninth. And we're going to see Hoskins. And this is it. We're back to the wall. Again, no two-strike stroke. There's that Hail Mary effect again. Just not effective. Okay? Here's Real Mutu. Looks for it, gets it, drives it. That's a nice at-bat right there. He looked nice and smooth, for the most part. Now here's Bryce Harper, and I don't know what pitches he likes to swing at. I'd have to talk to him directly or watch him more. But a little, he's obviously late on the ball, and he's gone. Okay? And this will bring up Castellanos. This to me was a very odd at bat. I believe that's an 0-0 count. And this play that Tucker makes, fantastic play. I think that's right up there with Bregman and Segura. That might be the best play of the game. Those three were my favorites. So anyway, we'll be right back, and we're going to talk in more detail about all these things I've been saying. All right, so here's the fun part where we're going to go over the details of my analysis. But before we do, I think it's important that you understand that now, 40 years later, I feel as though I have surpassed my teacher in his ability to administer his own theory and to support it in detail and with drills and all. And there's a part of me that doesn't really like saying that because Ted Williams is clearly my father in hitting. He created me. I was working at his boys' baseball camp, and when he got to know me, he stopped me one day and said, I've never met anyone that knows as much about my theories of hitting as you do. And I was 21 at the time, and he let me grow up a little bit and then finally kind of made that publicly known. And there's documentation on it if you want to watch it. I might link it at the end of the video of him saying it. The reason I'm saying that is because when you pick me up in the science of hitting, in that theory, you get like 30% more strengthening the theory, and you'll see there's places where I argued with Ted over things that were confusing in the science of hitting, and this will come up as we go along here. And there's reasons that I would say this. There's reasons why I feel like I've surpassed him and had the ability to. One is being a phys ed major. Another would be that I've worked at hitters for 40 years from the lowest levels to the highest levels. So I know the span. I know the staircase of learning how to hit, what's missing for young kids, and what's missing for high school players and college players. I've seen all that for years and years and years. Another thing that I think is extremely important is I was right-handed. So I was a right-handed batter, and this is key. Okay? So having said all that, we'll be right back. There are 2 Cy Young Award pitchers that I want to talk about before I start talking about the 2-strike stroke. Number 1 is Dennis Eckersley. I was listening to the Eck, who I loved. He's retired now, on a NESN broadcast, with the Red Sox and all. And he said, man, I can't believe they're hitting the ball so hard. They're hitting that cheese, man. He was really ranting and raving about the power in the swings of the hitters today. Now, where'd that power come from? I can tell you this. Here's a place where Ted loved me and a place where I strengthened the theory. The lower and upper body, you'll hear me say that this hitter is unconnected. The lower and upper body have to be connected properly. This is not documented well at all in the science of hitting. I came along in Disciple of a Master in 1986, and I nailed it. I said, if you don't get in this position at this time, you will never reach your potential as a hitter. This is something that has really changed. Everyone is in the stretch position. Not everyone. You'll hear some guys that aren't doing it. But just about everyone today is in the stretch position. I like to think that work is mine. The science of hitting, as it was out for years, people did not lock onto it because it's not documented well. This is a place where I helped out. Now, Ted dictated that book to an author. I wrote the books myself, so there might be some confusion in what he was saying and what John Underwood, who wrote The Science of Hitting, was understanding. So I want to say that. The next thing I want to say is Cy Young Award winner Jim Lomborg. And I was able to sit right with Jim for a while at our Ted Williams camp reunion, going way back to when I met Ted. And we just had this reunion, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago. And Jim was saying to me, man, what an exciting time to pitch. And I'm thinking to myself, why would you want to pitch to guys, every single guy in the lineup can rip your head off? And so between those conversations of the echo, man, was all this power, and Jim Lomborg's basically saying, man, I'd die to have that ball in my hand today. Somewhere between those 2 Cy Young Award winners is the truth. And this is what I think I can provide for you in regard to what's missing. First on the list, you're going to hear me say throughout the clip, you heard me, no 2-strike stroke. Okay, no 2-strike stroke. So, first of all, let's talk about what a 2-strike stroke is. A 2-strike stroke is a defensive stroke designed to hit whatever is being thrown to you with 2 strikes. It is shorter and faster and very deliberate. It is usually designed to hit to the middle of the field or to the opposite field, although I favor the middle of the field and not the opposite field. That's what it's designed to do. So let's use this analogy. Imagine if you were playing golf and you now are on the green or just before the green and you're still using your driver. That would be a normal stroke. If we think of it as a club, if we think of it as a tool, it makes no sense to not have a 2-strike stroke. So I hope you're following this. The fact that these players, in the biggest game of their life, some of them will never be there again. In the biggest game of their lives, with ERAs in pitching that is unsurpassed, some of the men that walked to that mound were very, very talented pitchers. And pitching is ahead of hitting in regard to its application in the game. And this is important to understand as well. So let's look at it another way. So what I'm saying to you is with a 2-strike stroke, there wouldn't have been, it's hard to predict because I don't know, but I'm going to say half the strikeouts, the ball would have been put in play. How many pitchers made a play in that game? I counted 1. was the ball back to Wheeler, the broken bat play. There were no plays by the pitcher. So what I'm saying is if you have someone that can run a little bit, or even if they can't run a little bit, they put a ground ball to play in the infield, or they, hit a soft line drive, or they drive the ball in the gap for a double. All these things are very possible with two strikes. With a two-strike stroke, which is much smaller, much more deliberate than your normal stroke. Okay? So what do you get out of it? What you get out of it is more time to see the ball and identify the pitch location and the type of pitch. And this was missing throughout this game, and it is missing throughout the season. Now, there are guys that I see that make some minor adjustments, but it would be much more recognizable. Usually the bat, well, let's go to Ted. The bat levels off. There's usually a changing in the foot position, and we're thinking of hitting the ball to the middle of the field. Some guys, like I said, will hit the ball to the opposite field, but I don't really like that. I'd rather hit the ball to the middle of the field because there's more room in the middle of the field. It is a difficult play for the shortstop and second baseman. Center field is the biggest place, There's less chance of hitting the ball foul. You're going to put your bat more perpendicular to the plane of the pitch that's coming in if you try to hit to the middle of the field. When you go into the opposite field, you're kind of slicing the ball a little bit. You don't have as much bat lined up with the ball, okay? There was a diagram in around the second inning that showed all the speeds of the different pitches and predicted places where the hitter would see them and what they looked like. It was a very interesting diagram. The two-strike stroke takes an impossible job of dealing with all those speeds and positions and lets you deal with it in a way that is, for a decent ball player, is not all that difficult. It's not easy. It's a different feeling than your normal stroke before two strikes, but it has to be there. And I'm going to go to another thing, because we know another subject matter or way of looking at this. All these people watching on TV and the fans, and a strikeout is, I suppose it's okay for the pitcher and, for the fans that are on the pitcher's side. But I have to think in general, I'd like to see Bregman make more plays like he did. I'd like to see the mid-infield working on ground balls that are hit, or line drives that are hit, or the pitcher getting balls hit back to him. I don't think the catcher made a play in front of him all night long. Like something that, a two-strike stroke, a lot of times you might just get a piece of it, you put it in play, and you force the defense to get you out, rather than you taking that, what I call the Hail Mary swing. I'm just going to try to get my bat on it with my normal stroke, which is a very difficult thing to do. And you also heard me say in my analysis that, some of the guys were swinging at pitches that they never would have swung at with a two-strike stroke. By having more time, like I said, where the location is. You're not going to swing at something that's, up here a little bit. You're going to see it longer and nope, I don't want that. And then, the ball's coming into you and you say, oh, that's not a fastball, that's this. Okay, and you can kind of just think about it for a split second and then pop, put your bat on a little bit. Also, you may notice when Vasquez was up early in the game, I kind of stumbled in what I was saying. I said, oh, no two-strike stroke. And I said, well, that might be, and I was going to comment on that more, and I'll get back to that. But he did have no two-strike stroke, but I'll explain to you why I kind of stopped as we go along in this explanation. So the two-strike stroke is crucial to the game. I think what you'd have is you'd have a more exciting game. There were no plays at the plate. There was the opportunity of one play at third, and the center fielder decided not to go after Altuve, which was probably a good decision. So I think what you're going to get is more action in the game, and I think that the two-strike stroke being, learned properly and returning to the game is going to be a huge help. And that's why I wanted to deal with it first and explain to you what it is and how important it is. And it's not something the fan understands, but any ball player watching this is like, oh yeah, that's a good point. Why is it not there? One of my guesses is that maybe we're rewarding financially in these contracts all the wrong things. And then you see, Major League Baseball concerned about the game, and maybe we're rewarding the wrong things in these contracts that these players are getting. So anyway, that's my explanation of what a two-strike stroke is, and also why it's so important, and I really hope it returns to the game. Williams had a two-strike stroke, Ruth had a two-strike stroke, Cobb had a two-strike stroke, Gehrig had a two-strike stroke. You don't have a two-strike stroke? Who do you think you are? I can't imagine playing against those players. Some of the best curveballs and ERAs and pitching in the game today without a two-strike stroke. How many two-strike stroke situations were they? Sometimes I didn't even say it. I missed it because it was hard to see, or I just missed it. I was thinking about something else. I'd like to count them up. This is a different game with the two-strike strokes. Different game. And here's what I'm going to say to you, too. I'll leave you with this before we go to the next subject. How many runs can you score on an out? Now, I don't know if the Society of American Baseball Research has ever done that stat. Well, maybe we could say how many runs are on an average scored on an out. But the answer is it's unlimited. The game of baseball is not over until one team gets 3 outs. So the half of the inning isn't over until you get 3 outs. So a two-strike stroke is the ultimate rally sparker. The fact that we don't have it in the game is a rally killer. And in my opinion, the most exciting thing I've ever seen in baseball was a rally. And without the two-strike stroke, you're going to decrease your walks, you're going to decrease your errors, you're going to decrease your hits. Makes no sense. If there was a place where I have improved on the Ted Williams theory that I am very proud of, but that's ahead of its time, it would be in what I call style. This is missing from the game today, and it's always been in the game. Now, before we get into it, let's talk about the science of hitting theory. One of the things that is misunderstood is because Ted Williams was a pull hitter, a lot of what you're seeing on TV is guys turning the corner and pulling the ball. This is a mistake. Most of the great hitters and the good hitters in this game hit the ball to the middle of the field. They didn't pull it. Ted is an odd duck in that way. The greatest story maybe in baseball history is when number 3, wearing pinstripes, points to center field and calls his shot. He didn't point to right field. He pointed to center field, or points to center field. And I bring up that story because what I'm saying is, once, if we go back to Dennis Eckersley, once every hitter learns, hey, I can get my lower and upper body to torque the ball correctly, and I can hit it with unbroken wrists, the good hand position, they're going to hit the ball harder and further than they ever had in their life. Once they do that, they immediately think, well, I want to hit the ball to the pull side because the fence is closer. The only problem is most guys can't do it. So what I did back in a book called Disciple of a Master back in 1986, 87, I identified several styles of hitting. And these styles were not new to the game. Would you call Ty Cobb a power pull hitter? Of course not. You'd call him a singles hitter. Or a punch hitter, or a push hitter. These names have been around for years, for over 100 years in baseball. All I did was I said, boy, I could see that the Ted Williams theory had this misunderstanding that we got to pull the ball.
That's not what Ted intended at all. And matter of fact, said that most of the great hitters hit the ball to the middle of the field. So you'll hear me talk about out of style. So I identified several styles of hitting back in 1987, and I've actually expounded on that some more. Here are the styles of hitting. A pull hitter, okay? A power pull hitter, the hardest style of all, okay? Then you have a middleman, and this style of hitting gets divided into two different categories. A power middleman and just a regular middleman. And then the last style of hitting is what I call a singles hitter. So what you're seeing on the TV today is everyone trying to be a power pull hitter, and they're terrible at it. They don't have the ability to do it. Now, there are requirements for all these styles, and I will not go into that because we don't have enough time. But I will kind of go back into my analysis and pull out some names and compliment what they're doing or try to encourage them to think about something else. And how you execute these styles, I'm not going to go over that right now, but I will talk in general about how they work. Now, let's go to Alvarez. You might have heard me say that I thought he was very much in style. This guy is a massive, big, strong guy, and he's going to hit the ball to the middle of the field. Now, I haven't watched all his locations throughout the season. I really don't have time for that. But my first glance at him is that he's very much in style, meaning he's a power middleman. Pretty much everything he hit was to the middle of the field. When I say the middle of the field, I don't mean right a line from home plate through second base to center field. I mean a piece of pizza from the shortstop, give or take, to normal shortstop, normal second base position. That's another thing. All this shifting that's going on is because everyone thinks they're a power pull hitter. And they hit enough of them into the seats so the fans all clap and talk about how good they are when it's ridiculous. They're not that good. They're not. So let's say, what would the gates be? What would be the requirements of deciding what style you'd hit? For example, maybe a pull hitter. If you can't hit 20 home runs or 25 home runs, no. Because if you're trying to pull the ball and you really should be hitting the middle of the field, you're going to hit 25 points higher on your batting average. You're going to be on base, more runs for your team, you see. So if you're out of style, you are taking away from your team. You're taking away from your team's approach in relation to pitching's approach against your team. If you're following this. We're not there yet. This is not an easy thing to do, and you got to know what you're doing. But it makes perfect sense. And these hitters, these styles have been in the game. They're not new. For example, I said that I thought Pena, and there was a gentleman in the game too named Boehm. I thought they were very much in style. They were, from what I saw, at least in this game, they were hitting the ball in general to the middle of the field. I mean, I think Boehm was laid on like an outside fastball and sent it to right. Well, that can happen to anybody. I'm talking on an average, trying to hit the ball to the middle of the field. To me, they're middlemen. Now, could they be power pull hitters? Maybe. Your style can change, but you got to know what you're doing and what you're trying to do, and that's not what's going on in the game today. Now, this isn't the first time I've said this, but Altuve, who I absolutely love. Now, here's another thing. Let's go back to this. So, before I get into Altuve, let's talk about style in a way that might be easier for you to understand. Would you like to see Tom Brady play center? Would you like that? Would you like the center to be the quarterback? You're latching on now. Would you like to see the point guard of the Celtics, go down the low post and bang some boards? And maybe have, I haven't watched basketball in years though, but, bring up, a low post man, have him bring the ball up the court.
No. Could he do it? Maybe. I would say, could Larry Bird bring the ball up the court? Sure he could. But you don't want him to. Because for your team, there is someone else there that can do a better job of it. He could probably do it, just like, Sosa can hit the ball, to left field. But in my opinion, and I don't know these guys, and I'm going to put out a warning. I would have to research more and more. But just looking at them, Maldonado, Sosa, these guys are power middlemen. Just looking at their bodies, and usually you're right. You can kind of look and tell, but you want them doing what they should be doing within your lineup. No different than Tom Brady not being the center. You see what I mean? Or your right tackle isn't the quarterback, because it doesn't make. Could he do it? He might have a good arm, but he doesn't run all that fast, or he's not that smart, or whatever it is. There's all sorts of considerations. Style is a nightmare. Okay, so that's what style is. And I'm very proud of it. Now, here's a place where I improved on Ted's theories. Ted said, it's not Williams' style or Ruth's style, it's your own style. I couldn't disagree more. And me and Ted used to go at it. It used to get hot, man, hot. Because I wasn't a yes man. I was very respectful and graceful, but I would not back down. So I disagreed completely with the science of hitting when they're talking about it's your style. Style is not technique. Okay? So what I'm saying is your technique should be placed inside of a certain style, and then hit within the Ted Williams science hitting theory. And like I said, I'm not going into the details of that, but it's not that hard to do if you know what you're doing. So let's go back to Altuve. And I said the same thing I'm going to say. Well, let's stay on Altuve. So Altuve's out of style to me. Now, here's a guy with as much ability. Let's just say this. All these guys have a ton of ability. Whether it be Sosa or Pena or Altuve or Bohm or Stott or whoever it is. These guys have ability to burn without a two-strike stroke, without being in style. What do you expect? What do you think you're going to get from that if you try to be the point guard when you're really a forward? When you try to be the quarterback when you're really, a tight end, or a wide receiver? You're not going to get the best for your team. You might be able to do it, but you're not going to be able to do it as well as someone else on your team, possibly, that can do it better. But you got to understand that's first on the list. So back to Altuve. This guy has as much talent and is as exciting of a player as anyone in the game. He's been there for a while. We all know who he is. In my opinion, he is dramatically out of style. He has no two-strike stroke. And if I was Altuve, I would become a middleman. He's batting kind of as a power pull hitter from what I can see. I would become a middleman. I would get myself a two-strike stroke. I would connect my swing a little bit better because on some swings he's unconnected. I would use my arms a little bit better because he's way off the plate and kind of dives in. And you ready for this? I would chase old Ted for the 400 mark. Oh, yes. Oh, you know. You know more about this than I do? I don't think so, buddy. I don't think so. And how do we prove it out? Somebody's got to do it. All right, so let's continue. So I wanted to be bold saying that, and I'm bold. I've worked for it for 40 years. The greatest hitter of all time, in my opinion, per at bat. Thought that I understood his theories better than anyone he ever met in his life. And man, I wasn't even warmed up yet. Okay, let's continue. Then I identified another style as a singles hitter. A singles hitter is someone that can absolutely fly. Now, I don't know the guys in the game today. Off the top of my head, I can think of guys that used to play, guys that just flew. Ichiro comes to mind. Rod Carew comes to mind. Guys that could steal home plate on you, these sort of guys, they, to me, should be singles hitters, and they should always be putting the ball in play and striking out next to zero, hardly ever striking out at all, enforcing the defense. And don't get me wrong, singles hitter hit one off the wall. I don't want to make it sound like that. Remember, we said these guys have more ability than anybody. Let's go back to Alvarez. Alvarez in his two-strike stroke, in my opinion, if he learns a two-strike stroke, which he does not have, he'll hit 10 home runs out of it. It's not like you can't put the ball out of the park in your two-strike stroke. It's not like, well, this is my style, so I can't do anything else. Can a singles hit a home run? Sure he can. I'll tell you what you'll see a lot more of. You'll see the ball bouncing around in the gaps, and a singles hitter will make it inside the park home runs because they'll hit the gap and they'll fly. And then if you can't pick up the ball, like Schwarber and left, he's standing up at home plate. So that's what I'm talking about in regard to style. And I also want to make the point that it was a place where I banged heads with the science of hitting, one of many, and try to come up with something better. We'll be right back. If there is a place in hitting where Ted Williams took a liking to me, it would be on my theory of under the white. I'll never forget, I was sitting at Ted Williams' camp. I was just a young guy, 20, 21 years old, still playing in college, I remember that. I was probably 20 at the time. And Ted had taken a liking to me, so he come in the cafeteria, and, the coach is part of it. And he sat down with me, and I'm trying to think of the guys. I believe Dave Bunnell was at that table, my good friend. Joe LaRusso, my good friend. I'm trying to remember who else was there. There were a couple of other guys that were counselors in the camp that was sitting there as well. And Ted, he always would go on the offense. He was kind of a conversation starter. So, Ferroli, I went to the plate. And he named off the numbers X amount of times, and every time I went to the plate, I try to get the ball in the air, And of course, we were just thrilled that he was sitting there. And he said, but still, I made more outs on the ground. And I said, I was sitting across from him, and I said, well, I have a theory about that. And he folded his arms and sat back and went, well, what are you going to tell me about hitting? And what I said to him is that basically, I'm not going to go into detail on it, that the top of the ball is brighter than the bottom of the ball because the lighting source is always above, whether it's cloudy or night game, it doesn't matter. The lighting source is above. The lights are coming down, the top of the ball is brighter than the bottom of the ball. Now, I've noticed in the past few years that Major League Baseball has done something to get more light on the bottom of the ball to probably help the hitters. But if you look at this on a given day, you're going to see that the bottom of the ball is in the shade. Well, you speed that up. The hitter, cripe, you speed it up to 98 miles an hour. You can barely see the bottom of the ball at all. And therefore, the bright part of the ball becomes a true optical illusion. Let me say that again. The ball becomes a true optical illusion because all you're really seeing is the top. Your eyes are attracted to what's bright. In the part that's in the shade, you lose. And this is true at, little kids. You can see it. It's plain as day. Come in if you look for it. Like it was evident in some parts of the game. So Ted get up and walked out of that conversation. He said, that makes sense. And he get up and he walked away, and I knew right away that was going to be the place where I was saying to him, hey, I'm really serious about this. I really think about it. I'm trying to do the very best I can, and I'm as crazy as you are. And the guys that were left with me said, oh, you pissed him off. And I said, no, I didn't. And I knew, because I knew him so well at that point. From reading about him and then meeting him, I knew that I had made a friend because no one had ever said that before. So when you hear me, I'm talking about Tucker. I said it about Bryce Harper. I also said it about Vasquez in the early innings. I kind of stopped. I said, oh, no two-strike stroke. And I said, oh, well, maybe, and I stopped. This is what I was talking about. Sometimes you do everything right. You set up for the right pitch. You timed it correctly. You swing the bat, and you hit the top of the ball. You hit the white. You don't get under the white, where the middle of the ball really is. So you kind of do this sort of thing. You hit the top rather than I'm sorry, this would be a better way of saying it. You come in there and you hit the top of the ball, the brighter part. You know, you can almost see that. Well, it's not a little bit different here, a little bit studio thing. You hit there rather than there, right in the middle of it. You know, to drive it. You know, if I had a ball here somewhere, yeah. You know, so you come in and you're kind of hitting this part rather than the middle. And that's because of that theory. About this back over here. So that's when I said about Tucker, I think that was a target area mistake. Or when I talked about, I think Bregman had one too. It's very difficult, watching someone else's footage to see, was that a roll or was that done correctly and it was you just hit the top of the ball. And when I'm there, I can hear it. There's different sound to it, and I can see it better. But watching these clips, it's not as easy. But the angle I'm on, but that's what I'm talking about. It was he either rolled it over, or he hit the top of the ball. He did everything right and just hit the wrong place. There was a coach down at Ted Williams camp said, "I don't like the Ted Williams theory because all you do is hit ground balls." And it was kind of interesting. I always thought by just adding on to ground balls, meaning hitting the top of the ball all the time because of a slight upswing. But by adding in the under the white theory, boy, it really comes alive. I never had a big year in my life till I understood under the white. That's when I really exploded. I said, "Man, this is important." And unfortunately, I didn't discover that until like my junior, senior year of college. I wasn't even good at it. It was late. Tough being in New England. Tough. We'll be right back. One of the things that I talked about in the analysis was players that were unconnected or disconnected, which is a term that I use now and then. This is another place where I improved on the Ted Williams hitting theory. I might have mentioned this earlier, but I want to go into a little bit more detail. If you talked hitting with Ted, he'll say hips ahead of hands, hips ahead of hands. He was big on that. And of course, all the greats did that. If you watch Home Run Derby, the logo in the background has a player, although I don't like the arm position of that logo, it has a player in the stretch position. The science of hitting does not document this well, and if there was ever a place for there to be a mistake, this is about the worst place that could have had this mistake could be. In 1986, I wrote a book called Disciple of a Master. I wrote another one in 1997 called Hit Your Potential. Don't buy either one of them because I got a third one coming out soon. We're working on it now. So what is the stretch position? It gets your hips ahead of hands. It basically explains that the torso is being pulled by your hip rotation. But if your torso is not set purposely behind your hip rotation to the point of discomfort, by the way, you will not have a kinetic chain and you will lose a lot of your power. Now, to think that this was a mistake in the science of hitting is sad, but again, that book was dictated, like I said earlier, maybe. And it's just a shame. I nailed it. In 1986, I had never seen anyone document it before. I was a little bit disappointed one night a few years back when I was watching, I believe it was a former Yankees player, and he was talking about the stretch position, but did not give credit to Ted or myself. And it was, the MLB network, and they're in that little studio and that sort of thing, and I was a little bit disappointed about that, but I'm glad that at least it's there. The first time I saw the stretch position come in was I was a guest at Ted's down in spring training, and I was talking to Todd Benzinger. He was rooming with Brady Anderson. And I talked to him about the stretch position and some hand position, as far as contact and drills that I use to do it, proper hand position and contact point of the ball. And crepe 2 years later, Brady Anderson hit like 50 home runs, and he was in the stretch position. I had people from all over the country call me and say, and there was just about no one on TV that was doing it correctly at that time. But I always felt like I introduced it, and that was back in, I want to say 87 or 88. Well, the Red Sox were at Winter Haven, let me put it that way. So I've been on this for years and years and years, but it takes a while for everything to come forward. So guys that were unconnected, Altuve at times is unconnected. Pena is unconnected. Now think of that. Here's where I say this is fun. Please do not, I don't want this to come off like, all critical. What I love this game. I want to see this game improve. Now you got a kid like Pena who's going to be a superstar if he stays on path and doesn't get hurt and doesn't do something stupid. So I want him to understand he's not connected. So to me, he's late with his stride. He doesn't get out there on time, and we can talk about that in a bit. But let's stay on the connection. So, and then his hips and his upper body stay more stacked. Then he just kind of explodes out of it, but he does a good job with his hands pushing the ball to the middle of the field. And he hit 400 like that. What would happen if he gets a connected swing? It's going to be just crazy. And there were other guys in there that were unconnected, but he was the one that stood out to me more than anybody else, probably because he was just so exciting to watch. You're drawn to him. He's got a charisma about him. And so be it. It's good for, good American baseball player. I love it. Go get him. Where's the Maine Black Bears? So that's what I mean by being connected. While we're on the subject of swing things, let's go to what I keep saying, rolling over. Well, basically, the contact point should be made with the hands flat like this, in the unbroken wrist position like that. And when you roll over, what happens is the top hand rolls over and the barrel of the bat kind of hops up over the top of the ball and you ground it out. And most people understand this at this point. Thank God. There were years. It took them 30 years to understand this, by the way. First time I saw it was Johnny Gomes was doing it in a game. Very deliberately went through his swing. I don't even think he rolled over at all. I said, oh, that's a good sign, a very good sign. You saw some of that in the game that we just watched, two guys being deliberate with the hand position. But because they don't understand timing, they weren't, or they weren't connected properly, they couldn't get there. So that's what I'm talking about when I say disconnected or unconnected, and as far as rolling over on the ball. Okay, we'll be right back. Finally, to finish off, before I forget, if you have any comments on this video, if you leave them in the comments section, we'll try to get back to them. Usually what I'll do is create another video and use your name or whatever your screen name is, and say, hey, here's the answer to your question. I would like to get to streaming. We just got to figure it out a little bit better, and maybe we could, once a week or once a month, we could stream and talk about a lot of this live. It'd be kind of fun. The final thing I want to talk about is, I can't remember whether I said this or not, but I did notice what I call high striding. A lot of you might have heard me, say I think he's late, like I did with Pena. The hitter should be starting forward with his foot at the very latest when the ball is over the pitcher's shoulder. It's still in his hand. This is vitally important. This is what I call the first step or the first level of timing. To me, there are 3 levels of timing. That's the first one. None of them are hard to execute if you understand them. But this is the problem, and this is what is missing here. So, So let's say in Pena's case, he's not moving forward when the ball is already out of the pitcher's hand when he's moving forward. Or that might be the case with some of these other guys. And I'm not talking about lifting your foot up in the air, which I think is a terrible idea. I think Castellanos did this. I think Sosa did it. I'm trying to think who else was a high strider. Let me grab the lineup card here somewhere real quick. I'm trying to think of the guys that stepped high. I don't know. I can't remember now. But Segura maybe. I think Real Mutu maybe. I shouldn't do that because I'm not sure. But anyway, their names don't matter. But if you're stepping, if your foot is going up and over like that and coming down, bad, no good, in my opinion. You know, and where's Melott? There's an old hitter who stepped way high and all, but there's an easier way of doing all this, and that's kind of what the point that I'm making. If you're in the grass, in the outfield grass, your foot should never come out of the grass. And I'm not talking grass that hasn't been cut for 3 weeks. I'm talking about fresh cut grass on a Boston night in June. Your foot should stay within that grass. You're going to lift it up and just stride right along that. Now, if you understand the other parts of timing, you can create what I call the pendulum that will smoothly do all this, enable you to settle onto the ground without this up and over, stepping over a basketball type of stride. Bad idea. You can't hit till your foot gets back on the ground. You also do not have as much control over your body in the event that the ball is coming at you until you get your foot back on the ground. So there's a safety factor there as well. You need to get your foot on the ground. And there's some higher levels of this as well. There's one way to do it, and there's another way to do it that's even more advanced. This, if you hear me say a late or high stride, that's what I'm talking about. So that's really important as well. I'm trying to think there's something else I wanted to say. We talked about the comments, we talked about high stride, and there's something else in there I wanted to mention. Boy, what was it? Take a look at my card real quick here. Can't think of it right now. Well, anyway, this has been fun, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, I'd like to say that I don't mean it to be, it is constructive criticism. It is educational. I'm happy for someone to comment at, in argument with me. You'll get it right back though, because I put a lot of time in. But I do the best I can. I'm a pretty busy guy, and I don't do a lot of this, but I do think that using Major League Baseball as a way of trying to pull together what old Ted was saying, what Dennis Eckersley had noticed, what Jim Lombo was saying, there isn't a better guy to explain all that than myself. If we're going to use the Ted Williams hitting theory, you got another theory hitting, good luck to you. To me, this was the easiest way to go about it. Oh, I know what it was. I remember what it was now. So let's say before 2 strikes, there was a chart that I talked about this earlier, that come up in about the second inning. It had all these different pitches. Well, here's the thing. A good hitter is going to, before two strikes, a good hitter is going to look for one thing or another. I'm looking for the fastball, and he's going to set up for it. This is the heart of timing. Ted called it the cat and mouse game. You have got to master this idea. Now, to give you an idea, you say, "Oh, I won't look for the right pitch at the right time. I'll screw it up." Well, you got to pay attention. You got to be smart. You got to be into the game. You can't be, on your phone in the dugout. You got to actually care about it. I watched every pitch. I used to get upset when I was a freshman in college. My coach asked me to chase a foul ball because I'd miss what the pitcher was doing. If you follow what I'm saying, I was ripping mad. I'd hustle. I never hustled so fast for a foul ball. It wasn't I want to get the ball in the game. I wanted to see what the next pitch was. I used to hope it was like late in the inning, so that there'd be I could kind of watch while I was running Oh, ground out to short. Okay, that's 3 outs. I'll go get the ball ahead of the middle of the inning to go find the ball in the wherever it was, So you got to know what's coming, and therefore, if you know what's coming, you can set up for it. A good hitter doesn't get a fastball and then swing at a curveball, or doesn't look for a curveball and then swing at the fastball, because you can't do it correctly. You're not at the right place at the right time. So that chart that was in the second inning, a good hitter understands how to look for different pitches at different times. And I'm not going to go into location. That's another story. But the pitch itself, let's just start with that. He's going to look for the fastball. In that way, he's able to counter that chart that they showed in the second inning, which I really liked, by the way. But the way they talk about it is that, Marsh is up there, and whatever's thrown to him, he's just going to try to deal with it. That's not what's happening. That's the last thing that's happening. And I like using Marsh's name because he come off the bench, had a 2-ball, 1-strike count, I believe, because this one really stands out to me, and looked for the fastball, got it, and drove it to right center field. He just missed that. And I said, wow, that's a great at-bat. I just really liked, and he's coming off the bench. He's been sitting there for 2.5 hours. Love that at-bat. That's what I'm talking about. Now, if he got a curveball and he swung at it, he'd look like, someone with a clown suit on, because he would not have been in the right place at the right time. That's how you combat that graph. So when you listen to some of these color guys talk, they don't know what they're talking about. That's not what Williams did, or Ruth did, or Marsh did. They're looking for a certain pitch, they're getting it, and they're dealing with it. Okay? I just was reminded of something else. I did talk about the inside-out stroke. Now, I believe Stott had one, and also Mancini laid out a beautiful one. Now, Mancini's I thought was on purpose. I thought he was purposely trying to hit the ball to the right side of the field, and did a fantastic job at the inside-out stroke, which has the same arm execution as the 2-strike stroke. We call it the inside-out stroke. And it's, basically your elbows and your wrists don't work the same way. And it's something you got to learn to do. Fun though. It also has a different target area. You're not aiming for under the white. You're aiming for the white or above it. Another interesting point. But I thought that Stott's hit was unintentional. I don't think he was trying to do it. I think he was just trying to swing slightly up. And he got as Eck would say, he got the good cheese, and he was late on it, and boom, he drove it over to third base to Bregman, who made a nice play on it. Both those were inside-out strokes. Now, Stott's may have been unintentional, where his arms never got to where they belong. That's still the inside-out stroke, but I think Mancini did it properly. Another thing came to mind. In one of those innings, 2 of the Phillies players were late on the ball, and they were deep, coming deep. They were late on it, and they were the back of the lineup. I can't remember who it was now. Back of the lineup, and the ball was deep on them. They kind of rolled over and hit it to the opposite field. So now the ball was deep, and they try to roll out. You went to the quickest parts of their swing, which is from the elbows down. Your arms are much quicker than the rest of your body. And they just try to do something with it, and they hit it over to the right side on the ground. Those were definitely rolling wrist hits. So if you could have fun taking this video apart. There's a lot of information here, and there's more to it as well. I think I've had enough. I've been working on this for 4 days. I felt bad we couldn't stream it. Thanks for listening to me, and as always, get a good pitch to hit.